Welcome to Dungeon Master Talk, the podcast for Dungeon Masters by Dungeon Masters. I am Dungeon Master Kyle, and joining me today, as always,
Dungeon Master Shay. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing well, thank you, Shay. Listeners, before we get going today, we do just want to take one moment and give our heartfelt gratitude for the fact that you guys have downloaded this podcast and supported us. Seriously, I know we've said it a couple times, but I don't think we could ever say it enough. We are absolutely flumbergasted. I don't even know if that's a word.
And bamboozled.
Yeah, just I struggle to express how grateful we are that you guys have been downloading this podcast, sharing it with friends, emailing us at dungeonmastertalk@gmail.com, all the things. It just, wow. When we started, absolutely did not expect to have this many people reaching out to us. Didn't expect to have this many people downloading it. Honestly, we wondered at one point if we would be our listeners, and we thought, hey, that'd be okay. We like talking about the game, tabletop role-playing games in general. And so we just wanted to extend our thank you. And if you are enjoying this podcast, if you could give us 5 stars on whatever format it is you download, or like, or follow if you haven't already, it just helps a ton with getting it through the algorithms and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Shay, was there anything, like, while we're thanking the fans, was there anything you wanted to add?
I mean, just want to echo your sentiment. I mean, we just super appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to be with us for this session. This session, guys, is kind of a heavy one. It's going to start off heavy, and then we're going to get into what we're actually going to talk about this week. But again, just thank you so much for sticking with us through the last few months that we've been doing this podcast. We just super appreciate you for that. So, Kyle, this last couple weeks, we had actually recorded our last episode right as this news was breaking out.
Yep.
And we decided to wait to make a comment publicly on this, just to kind of wait and see how this would kind of play out and progress and get more information as we went along. And most of you in the gaming community, the D&D community, are probably very aware of what's been going on.
Hopefully you're not too tired of hearing about it yet, because I think just as a community, we're not going to be done talking about it for a little bit.
It's more than likely, yes. It's an unfortunate topic that we have to roll initiative against at this point in time, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it's better to have at least spoken up and done everything that you can to voice your opinions than to sit back and not do anything.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know what Shay's alluding to, we're not going to dance around it. The news that we're referring to, that we said broke right as we finished recording, the last one, is all the controversy with the Dungeons and Dragons OGL, which is the open game license.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we don't want to do, we're not going to spend this podcast going over everything, every detail about it. Honestly, it's because we are not lawyers, and we believe strongly that you will probably get better information reading it for yourself or following all the official sources that have covered it. That way you can read the breakdowns from actual lawyers, and it'll be better. We've done that, and I still think just reading those sources for yourself will be good, but I do want to do like a brief coverage of it and kind of tell everyone what we think we are going to be doing going forward, kind of not in response, but just to make sure that this podcast stays alive and well and is providing helpful aid, which first and foremost is this podcast isn't going away. We believe that the content we are offering, while so far has been D&D focused, is not exclusive to D&D. What we're hoping is that we can transition this to really helping the role of the GM. And also, both Shay and I, our immediate campaigns right now that we are running are staying in D&D, although we have both taken a pause on spending our money on D&D licensed products for the time being, until this thing shakes out one way or another. And then at that point, we'll decide accordingly for what's right based on what's happening. We're not going to jump and make haste on any of that, but we do think it's good to be informed. What happened here, a new open game license that would deauthorize the original open game license 1.0A that we currently live with, was published online. And basically the verbiage in there, it was very harmful for the community, and it was very scary. Again, you can read that verbiage for yourself. We don't want to get into it in too nitty gritty on here, but it did threaten a lot of business models out there, so or at least appeared to. Wizards was quiet for a minute, and by a minute I mean about a week, and then posted out that that was a draft, is what they claimed. That's controversial. Again, read up on that. We don't want to tell anyone what to think or what to feel about that. And then they are now having a survey, which should be open by the time you hear this, and will be closing shortly after this publishes. So we do ask that if this is first you're hearing it, go try to get educated. Find the survey on Twitter from the D&D Beyond. That's where they posted it. I believe you can also find it directly on their website, but I have not located exactly where. Basically, what that is the ability to read the new 1.2 OGL, which has a lot of what was originally in that leak stripped out of it, but is still a new license that will deauthorize the original license. And what really that affects is virtual tabletops, live plays, other games that before have legally used the root D&D rule base to spin up their games, and also a podcast just about the game, like this one. And so the thought is that even if you are not a content creator, this probably does affect you even if you don't realize it. So we do highly recommend that you look into what all went on here. And I know that this is not our typical content. This is not us being as lively as we normally are. And that's because this is the not fun side of things. The stuff that we didn't want to ever have to cover. When we started this podcast, we just wanted to help. We wanted to help other DMs because every DM was a new DM once. We were new DMs very recently. In fact, some would still call us new DMs. And that's good. We want there to keep being new DMs or GMs for whatever game it is. Tabletop RPGs are incredible. My party has meant so much to me, and the campaign journey that we've gone on has meant a ton for me. The things that didn't pan out honestly mean so much more to me than the stuff that did, and the experiences are stuff I would never trade for a million years. And I can say with absolute confidence that Shay feels the same way. That's why we're here.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And so that's our promise with this, is that that's not gonna change. No matter what the outcome of this is, we are going to keep trying to help others run a tabletop RPG in that role behind the screen or in that role of the world creator. And so, obviously, we're tightly coupled to that term Dungeon Master. It's in our name. So if need be, we don't know what would happen there. That would be interesting. I'm chuckling about it because that actually just came to mind as I'm speaking right now. So I'm not going to make any promises or comments on that further.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet. So that might be something here about. We do believe that just for the Game Master, GM in general, this podcast is helpful. Whether it be for Pathfinder or D&D, and hopefully you feel the same. If you don't, please let us know. Let us know on our email. Let us know on our Twitter. Let us know on our Facebook. And we will change because that's what we want to go for. We want to go for helping you guys out. And honestly, we want to keep hearing from you guys because some of the stuff we've heard has already made me a better DM. Mm-hmm. I've taken your guys' advice into my personal games and it helps. And so having a community around anything you do makes it so much better. And that's what we want this to one day be. And not only a podcast of information, but also a community that we can be engaging each other and helping everyone grow. Jay and I have always said we don't believe we have it all figured out. So all this is just my very long-winded explanation to say, please go look into the OGL controversy. Read the 1.2 version for yourself if you feel so desired, if you want to arm yourself with that information. And then also, if you feel able to, please participate in that survey and let Wizards know what you think, honestly. I'm not going to tell you what to think of 1.2. I do not ever want to, on any form of media, to tell someone else what opinions they should form. Mm-hmm. I want to give you the information, and I want to arm you with the ability to make your decision. And hopefully that's what others posting content on there about this mean too. We're not going to be taking a side that's anti anyone. We're pro the content creators. We use a lot of their stuff. I actually didn't even realize how much stuff I had bought, and that was from content creators relying on the OGL until this. So it is far more impactful than what I even realized at first glance, and at first glance it seemed impactful. So please do educate yourself and act then as how you see fit.
Just as a note on that, really, guys, like Kyle and I actually became friends through D&D.
100%.
Well, and burritos, but that was besides the point.
And our wives liked each other. That helped. That helped tremendously.
That's true. Our wives brought us to burritos, and burritos led to Dungeons and Dragons, which is always how that works.
I do think burritos are just an awesome recruiting tool for role-playing games.
I mean, food in general is a really good recruiting tool, but
roll burrito for a save.
Oh man, that's not going to be a good save at all. But
too late, I already ate it.
It was so delicious. Here's the thing though, like whether or not the community of D&D gets what they want, really they can't take it away from us. That's something that we have to keep in mind, y'all. I mean, true, if things go sideways with the new OGL and people get all up in arms and start rioting and raise your torches and pitchforks and, whatever. The thing we got to keep in mind is the owners of Wizards of the Coast, which is Hasbro, is a gaming company, right? They've built toys that all of us played with when we were kids. They're continuing to build toys and games, and like that's what they do. And so from a business standpoint, like I understand that. I've done retail for way too many years to count. And like I understand the business model of it and trying to recoup cost. But at the same time, if you take away the people that are using your product, then that's going to take your business out altogether. But all of that to say, like, I hope that you, similar to us, will be informed, that you'll go through and you'll read the OGL, the new updates, that you'll stay on top of this, because
Absolutely.
we do want the game of Dungeons and Dragons to continue. We want there to be new content. We want the creators of that content to be supported and to be rightfully taken care of in whether monetization or recognition, whatever that ends up being for them. Like, we want this game to continue, and we want more and more people to play D&D. We want more people to be dungeon masters. And so, like, we are very pro-business for Hasbro in that sense, because we want this game to succeed, and we want them to keep creating content. However, if we don't stand our ground and tell them our opinions and and things like that, they can't make any changes. And so I've appreciated the community for those that have whistleblown.
Absolutely.
On the terrible management. We appreciate the people that have gone through extra lengths to help keep us informed of what's going on. But at the end of the day, let's just take worst case scenario, Kyle, right?
Yep.
Worst case scenario, they just say, have a nice day. We're going to do what we're going to do, right?
Yeah, they released the original one that was leaked online.
Yeah, just for sake of argument, right? The great thing about D&D is you don't have to have new content. You are the new content. That's the thing. Like, books, the handbooks, the monster manuals, the DMGs, those are guidelines. More guidelines than actual rules.
Yep.
You are your own imagination. You can create the next beast that your players will talk about for centuries and centuries and centuries. You can be the guy that comes up with a whole new world and a whole new landscaping and races and classes, and you can do that.
Yep.
Now, granted, you may not be under the Dungeons and Dragons proper model. You may be on your own in that respect, and that's fine. Or you might just leave it unpublished and leave that just for your group in general, and that's completely your case to make as well.
Yep.
But they cannot take D&D away from us. I think the game, it might stagnate for a while, but they cannot take away the game that we have loved for years and years and years, just because of this. We just might have to do that differently. Now, that being said, that doesn't necessarily mean that we wouldn't potentially look into other gaming systems.
Yeah, like Pathfinder.
And personally, y'all, I got my start on Pathfinder. I mean, that's a system that's near and dear to my heart a little bit. We might look into other D20 systems, maybe more sci-fi, fantasy type things.
Yeah, the real joy isn't necessarily the system. It's the people at the table, honestly, at the end of the day.
That'll drop a mic.
It's the collaborative storytelling system that really made this fun.
Absolutely.
That same experience is 100% in Pathfinder. It's 100% in the Fate system, which is not D20 based. There's so many great tabletop RPGs, and yes, D&D is the one that we cling to for so long now. Like, it had massive community, lots of content, really easy to jump into, all the modules to start. But honestly, if this goes worst case scenario, honestly, I think there's a multitude of systems that the community could jump to, and we'll keep the idea, the core idea and the core fun is going to live on. And that's what Shay's saying, is it's not going to end. Mm-hmm. This isn't the end of your tabletop RPG experience. What's not happening is no one is showing up at your door and ripping the books away and destroying your dice. If they do, email us, because that's going to be some serious outrage. We're going to get that to the community, and we're going to come save you.
Well, I don't know if we'll be able to actually get there in time to save you, but you had better...
Right, but we'll get you new dice.
No, I don't know about that either, but... I mean, we will help you roll initiative against whoever is trying to take your dice, and
yep,
yeah.
In a way, we will help you obtain.
Maybe we'll bring that barbarian from last episode.
Well, in a way, we will help you obtain new dice. We might not be able to actually supply you the dice, but we will help you find a way to get new dice, one way or another.
Yes,
online ordering systems for dice are a thing. But we kind of, that famous tangents here. Yeah, so we're going to wrap up this talk of OGL and actually get to you guys to what we wanted to talk about today, which, again, for the sake of this podcast and largely because we weren't prepared to do otherwise, we're still going to be talking kind of core D&D terms, but again, the concepts are going to carry over. And many of the systems that we mentioned, some by name, some not by name, they have this concept of magical items. So Shay, do you want to launch us into... magical item? Ooh.
I don't know what just happened.
Well,
that's the
only creepy way I know how to do things. Oh, I thought it was better than that.
Anyway,
listeners, was it that bad? Let me know.
Yeah, I need.
Shay's going to be taking applications for new. No, that's not real. Please do not email us an application. We won't know what to do with that. That'll be information that we'll be so confused.
It's true.
What have I done?
I spent 20 years in the Sword Coast. What?
Oh, okay. New tangent. Magical items can wait. What would be the first thing you would do if you suddenly found yourself in one of the realms?
Oh, man. I would probably make sure I had some armor.
Or would you need to check if you're a barbarian? Like, what's the test? You're just like, I have to get really mad and see if I get better. Like, it's like, okay, I'm not mad and that hurt, but if I get mad, does it still hurt?
You know what? Let's put this tangent in our listeners' hands. If you woke up in the realms, what would you do? What would be the first thing you would do?
And then also, second question, how do you discover safely that you are a barbarian or not?
I would say either a mosh pit or a tavern brawl, but
I said safely.
A mosh pit or a tavern brawl.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to have to destroy everyone.
If you walk out of there on your own power, you might have a shot.
Yeah, but that's might. I want to know definitively in a safe way.
We'll put it this way.
Yes, barbarian or no barbarian?
If you start fight and wake up with somebody helping you, you should not be a barbarian.
Okay.
It's about as safe as it's going to get. So
fair. I thought I was worried that was the answer.
So magic items. Yeah, bringing our tangent back down talking land.
Back to our normal podverse. We left our lane first.
We
actually, listeners, we do that a lot. We sing our own song. We're those type of people.
It's true, we are.
No shame, a little bit of shame, but not much shame. We're having a hard time focusing now. All right, so magic items. So getting us into the groove here. Magic items, this is something that I think, whether you realize it or not, when you first imagine RPG, if you're at all a fantasy fan, your mind will go here. Like, magic items, think of the One Ring in Lord of the Rings, or the invisibility cloak, or the Elder Wand in Harry Potter, Aragorn's sword that he got that allowed him to attack the ghosts in Lord of the Rings. Then the name that I almost said, Aragon, from the Inheritance Cycle, his sword Brissinger. These would all be considered magical items, and they go so far to make a game fun for a player. And so, firstly, before I jump into this, I'm just going to say, I think as a DM, at some point in your campaign, there should be opportunities for magical items.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's my way of launching us into this, trying to break tangent.
So I think for me, magic items are, like you said, one of the more fun things outside of combat. Finding new magic items and then finding a use for said magic item. Like, to me, there's nothing like it. But there's a few different ways you can go about getting said magic items, right? So everybody understands, usually a dragon horde will have something, because they like shiny items and they like magical items.
I thought you said horn for a second, and I was like, oh, I'm totally going to Google now if... I didn't realize you said horde.
Horde. Yep. Yeah, that's not going to get us in trouble. But anyway, so usually, okay, I shouldn't say usually, but there's probably a good likability that there's going to be a magic item in there somewhere. That being said, you can find a random treasure chest in a dungeon, in a mountain cave, in a bandit's hideout, whatever. You can scavenge for them. Or you have the ability, when you make some money, to make
money.
Making that money.
Dollar bills. Well, actually, in here, it's gold piece.
Gold piece.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. But you can have something commissioned, or you can buy a magic item outright. Now, for those of you who are newer to D&D and the Dungeon Master's seat, there are 5 levels of magic items. There are common, uncommon, rare, very rare, and legend. Wait for it, dairy.
I'm sure that was copyright somewhere. It's over.
Oh, totally copyright. And those of you who understand my reference, you're my people.
Yep, that was it. That was the end.
But nice knowing you guys. See you. Bye.
Check out our new podcast. And now that I broke Shay, I think he was going to launch into what the values of each of these items are. So in that,
well, so much for my attention deficit. Ooh, shiny.
There you go. So Shay, do you want to launch into what those values at each level is?
Sure. So if you were to purchase a magical item of sorts, and you found a common magical item, that would run you somewhere in the ballpark of about 50 gold pieces to about 100 gold pieces.
And when he's saying common, that he's really mentioning like things like the potion of healing. You know, those things that they are in fact still magical. I mean, a drink that restores your health. We kind of get used to the idea in D&D of like, oh, things do things, and that's just the norm. But like when something does something to that level, it's going to be a magic item, even if you're like, oh, you know, but those you can find potions of healing. Yes, that's why it's a common magic item.
It's not hard to find, obviously, because it's common. Things that are slightly more uncommon would be something like an alchemy jug, or like a never-ending alcohol tankard, or a flask of some sort. Seems to be a pretty...
Not all uncommons are drinkable, but yes, ones we like are.
Well, those you probably shouldn't drink. Kids stay in school. But so yeah, once you get there, and then you get into some of the rare magic items. Now there is a kicker to this, and you'll see these more in the rare, very rare, and legendary. This thing called attunement. So attunement, some magical items require you to have a slight bond with the weapon. So usually what that would entail is like you taking a short rest. Let's just take a fighter, for example. If he found we'll say a +3 magic item, like a sword or an amulet of health, he would take that and during a short rest and just sit there and focus on it, really study it, get to know it. And by that point, he would understand how that worked and therefore be able to use it. A rare item will run you anywhere between 500 and 5,000 gold pieces. So this is going to start costing you some coin, literally, to find these items. But working with your DM, and you can find these once you get into probably more levels of like level 8, 8 to 12, 9 to 13, somewhere in there.
Yeah, a little stronger, just because these games, sorry, not these games, these items, these rare items, they have the ability to very much change things for a party. Like if you get them at too low of a level, even the non-weapon ones, like your armor or your healing-based ones, or your ones that are more useful outside of combat, they kind of break things that are very common at that point in the game.
Mm-hmm.
They make the type of traps that you're going to encounter obvious or easy to get around. They make the monsters that you're going to fight too easy to defeat at too low of a level. And really, DMs are really, we're saying this just to help you out so that you don't put yourself in a situation where when you're trying to make encounters, you have to basically make them deadly in order for them to just be moderately hard. And it gets harder and harder to scale there.
At that point, I would just start scaling if it came to that. But and again, it's not like you're trying to kill them. It's just more or less like, trying to make it more enjoyable and things like that.
Yeah, that way they're not just like, oh, don't worry, he'll swing his mega sword hammer thing and it'll be over.
At a plus 13 to hit and plus 26 to damage, yeah, he's probably dead.
Oh, geez, that I want that item, Shay. Give me that item,
no kidding. Yeah, me too. So, but in that case, I think rare is about where the bag of holding, that is one of the more commonly sought after, actually, items in the game of D&D that we've found that it's kind of a staple for most gaming groups. Then you get into very rare. This is probably where you start talking to levels like 11 to 15, 16, somewhere in that ballpark. Some really, really awesome PCs at that point. That's going to run you somewhere between 5,000 and 50,000 gold pieces. Some of these could be very rare scrolls, probably along the lines of a Raised Dead, or even like a level 6 spell or level 7 spell. Like, some of these magic items are really going to cost you some coin, but these are going to be hecka worth it.
Oh, 100%.
And then you get into legendary, which is anything above 50,000 gold pieces in cost. This is probably where you're like level 15 to 20.
Yep.
Definitely 20.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's end game most of the time for most parties, if they get that high.
Yeah, and this would be like a cleric receiving the weapon of their deity, like the weapon that deity would use.
An example of a legendary item, one of my favorites, and one that I've never actually had in a D&D campaign, is the Ring of Three Wishes. Basically, a ring that is a genie, and you 3 times can cast the wish spell, which if anyone has ever heard of the wish spell, it's exactly what it sounds. You get to make a wish. And obviously that's game changing or breaking, so it's a legendary.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get that item. We're going to cast that on Woxy 3 times.
Ooh.
Tie back. Anyway. But all of that said, okay, so we talked about attunement for rare, very rare, and legendary. That being said, sometimes items that require attunement are going to be armor type things. They're going to be necklaces, bracers, boot items.
Shields.
Yeah, shields, weapons. Here's the thing. At any given time, you can have up to 3 items attuned to your PC. If you want to add something else, you need to take away another item. So whatever that ends up being for you and your player's PC. That being said, as you really want to scale these as your players find these or buy them, just so that way you're not, like Kyle said, you're not breaking your game too early or causing them to be kind of screwed over for not having those kinds of items later on when they're going to start needing them for higher level encounters.
Yeah, one reason, guys, that's not just the fact that these will make combat a lot harder for you to run if your players have them. Also, if you, at too low of a level, give a character a weapon or armor that makes them special, it honestly makes it a lot harder for the character to shine. So really, the point of these, to get these as they go higher and higher in level, is to make them kind of better at what they're supposed to be good at, and make them stand out more over time. But if you give somebody, say, the Sunblade at level 2, well, now that, who are they? They are Sunblade Man. That's what they're known for.
We call them
not
shiny.
All the stuff they're good for. Yeah, and that'll be fun. Like, don't get me wrong, it can be fun to have this type of thing happen. Almost everything we ever say we don't recommend doing can be fun in a like one-off session to do. For that character, what you really want, especially at low levels, is for them to get to know who their character is and really find that. Yes, they've created the backstory, hopefully. What happens a lot of times is players will get into playing and interacting with your world, and they'll discover, oh, this is who this character is. This is how I'm really playing them. And we want them to get that before we give them the ultra weapon of doom or the shield that's going to argue back with them and be mad every time it gets hit. Like, before we do those things which are fun and make these types of games amazing, you got to get your players into who they are so that they know what to say back to the talking shield or what to wish for with their 3 wishes on the ring. I can't believe that that's an item. Like, it is
no
so
kidding.
cool.
Like wish in and of itself is a powerful spell. The fact that you get to do it 3 times.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
But then once you've used them, it's just a ring. After that, there's no way to get them back. It's just a ring.
So that being said, Kyle, like we kind of talked about like finding them in the wild, and I know some DMs do this, some DMs don't. If you would like to have a random item found in the wild, you can use in the DMG. They have random tables of loot, and you can pick a table and then take your percentile dice and roll that, and you can pick that item.
Yep, that's actually how a member of my party ended up with the Sunblade, a weapon I've mentioned a few times. I have a tendency to like gravitate to a few items. That's why I love these tables. They get me to leave the like 5 items I tend to always drop.
So just keep that in mind. Like if you really want to have like a spontaneous weapon or a scroll or potion, potions are the best, right? Especially if you don't have a wizard in your party that can cast like identify or detect magic. It's basically Russian roulette at that point, because you may or may not have any idea what that potion's going to do, or a scroll for that matter, because you're looking at it going, what?
Yeah, you said that potions are the best. I have one correction to make to that statement. Unmarked potions are the best.
Bingo. That's what I meant. I meant.
That way, drink at your own risk, and it is so much fun. But also, before someone does message us online or emails us about it, I did look it up. We're sorry. The Bag of Holding is uncommon, but it's still a great magical item. Yep.
Oh, okay. Thank you for correction on that.
Man, did I drop a rare to my level 3 wizard? I was like, am I a bad DM?
I think there's a handy haversack. That might be a little bit more rare because it holds double the... Maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, the Bag of Holding is the famous one because more players have encountered it, having played at primarily lower levels.
Mm-hmm. That makes more sense.
Also, players out there in past editions of D&D, and I believe Pathfinder 1 first edition, I don't know that for sure. I'd have to recheck. It's been a long time. It used to be that magical items would have levels, and that would help us out. Now they've removed the levels because it is fun to do weird things and wackadoo with when you get the items. So everything we said with those levels, that's our recommendation. Yeah. They're not hard rules. I know I joked about they're like, oh, was I a bad DM for giving my level 3 rare? No, you're not a bad DM for including any magic items at any level. But we just wanted to give that recommendation, and that's all it is a recommendation.
Yeah. I do know in 4th edition they did have levels, and I'm pretty sure Pathfinder did as well, like you said. So, but I know for sure 4th edition had item levels.
There you go.
If you are playing an older edition or Pathfinder, I believe Pathfinder is the same way. You don't have to be the same level as that item to use it. You can use it. You just might have a Bag of Holding. You might have a handy haversack at level 10. I'm pretty sure it's level 10 in 4th edition. And you might be a level 3 character. Well, the bag just might be cooler than you.
Yeah. And sometimes, depending on the game, there's a disadvantage for using an item that's higher level than you. It might not be that you can't use it right. It might be that, like, it hurts you to do so too much. Or, like, your attunement keeps dropping off of it and you have to reattune because it's just too much to handle, essentially, is kind of like the idea behind the mechanic there.
Yeah. Like, I know for magic spell scrolls, you have to roll to be able to see if you can cast it properly.
Yep.
For sure in 5th edition. And then after that, you can kind of keep going at your leisure. That said, though, transitioning from the found in nature to found in civilization magic items. So I would really encourage you as a DM to have your players get to know a couple of shopkeepers, especially like a general goods store or an alchemist guy, or maybe even a special blacksmith, because that does a couple of things. One, it gets them to spend that hard-earned gold that they work so hard for.
Yep.
Not that your economy needs it necessarily, because, well, you just make up the currency as you go. But
Well, and also it's a fake economy. You can have it turn around and be prosperous on a dime because you are the DM. You can do that.
But also at that point too, you're creating those relationships with those NPCs, like we've kind of talked about from the shopkeeper's perspective. Those can be some close allies eventually. Those can be your insiders if you need information for something. They could just end up being generally cool people that you end up catching a drink with at the bar. I mean, whatever those end up being.
And by getting them to use their gold, that makes it still a meaningful treasure when they find looting or in caves.
Correct.
That way, you don't always have to reward with an item that they don't already have. And it creates another stop from the game because DMs, let's be honest, real talk for a second.
Oh, TED Talk.
Sometimes players get ahead of where we're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes things went faster than we predicted. It just happens. Having these people that have populated the world that you can go back to because they're going back to them, it makes it so much easier to handle this because now you're playing your world, not your plan.
Mm-hmm.
And your world can keep on playing for hours. As so long as the players are still having fun and interacting with it. It's super good to have that enticing factor at a shop. Whether that be the shopkeep's personality or that item that was so expensive when they were in there at level 3 that is now very reasonable when they're at level 5 or level 6 or level 25. Which if you're at level 25, please email us. I want to know everything about you.
Well, first of all, I want to know how you got to level 25 because the book only goes to level 20.
Yes, you invented 5 new levels. I need to know.
Or you're playing like 4th ed or before that, and you are pretty much a demigod. So, yeah, come talk to us. But yeah, I think just having the ability to either buy that item, like there's a sense of satisfaction with that. Just like when you and I go to the actual store and buy goods and goods and needs.
That's when I feel like a conqueror. I was like, I came in here and I turned paper into items.
I walk in, I grab bacon, I hand something to cashier, I walk out with bacon. I bring home bacon. Haha. Bacon is mine. Good. Bacon is good.
This is actually a post-dinner recording session.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the other thing too is when you get to commission a piece, like this is something that is kind of twofold. Your character gets a piece of that world. They get more input, like we've kind of talked about over the time. But again, you're deepening those relationships. You're strengthening the commerce of whatever city that is,
100%,
and really making that a staple in their game. That said, that could also turn into, if they become an ally, like the NPC becomes an ally, that NPC might go missing. Do.
And without being that ominous, it also is on an automatic hook for the characters to return to that area for something else you might have planned. Because here's the thing, DMs, if they're commissioning an item to be made or found,
it's going to take them a minute to buy it.
Yeah, don't have it be ready the next day in the game. Have it be ready in like a week time or 2 week time. Say like, come back to me in 2 weeks. Well, most of the time, the party's not going to want to fast forward that time period. Most of the time, like, oh, well, here's the other things on our to-do list. We'll be back.
Yeah.
They leave the town. They go on their next dungeon crawl, or they go fight off some orc stronghold, save the universe. And now they're back, and who knows what's happened to the town we're gone. Maybe they were raided, or maybe it's now under siege, or maybe, what have you. It's a hook for you to return to plan something around. And it doesn't even have to be anything that big, but it can be the next step along the plot. Like they come back and now there's a new shop owner. The shop was like the shopkeep, after finishing the item, left it in there for you. There's a note for it and everything, but so you didn't rob the player of their time and money and stuff, because that's just mean. But this person just vanished overnight, or they fell out of good standing with X gang, the Red Hood gang or whatever it is, and you got to go Red Brands. That's what I was trying to think of. And now you got to go save them, get them back, help them get their lives back on track. It just gives you that hook to know where things are going to be. And your party has a cool new item. So win for them, win for you. It's just all around good when this type of stuff happens, because that means we're existing in the world. We're populating our world as a team. The Dungeon Master is populating it. The players are populating it. And we know where we're going to go with the next story plot.
But that also being said, too, like you can actually give your players a chance to trade for magic items, too. They don't necessarily have to use just gold because, like, when you're adventuring, it's not like you're not going to find anything. If you end up killing an owl bear or something like it, if you remove its head from its body, I mean, somebody might collect that.
Vicious.
Somebody might be, collecting dragon scales or teeth or whatever. So, depending on the market and depending on the size of the town, you might be able to trade that in for some sort of currency to, if they're running short on funds, but there's something they really need. But also, it could be a player development thing as well. Having like an alchemist teach them how to make potions of healing, how to use an herbalism kit to be the medic in their group. Like you can, we're kind of tying back the shopkeepers into this episode. The shopkeepers can either supply that or they can teach your players how to use those items, how to make those items, so that way they can gain those proficiencies. Like I think my druid had to gain the proficiency of an herbalism kit when we were learning stuff like that, because I kind of became the de facto healer for a hot minute in our group. And that's fine. That's just the way it kind of broke down. But I didn't necessarily have as many healing spells as our cleric proper would have. So I had to come up with a way to be able to heal my group without expending all my spell slots on just cure wounds or something like that. So
right, because you still wanted to, do your druid stuff.
Yeah. And the druid stuff itself wouldn't be largely affected. It's just like I think cure wounds are like first level, and I think you can scale those up as you have higher levels. But like even just a limited number of heals, you still had to be careful.
Yep, you had to be a little bit more selective than if you were a cleric. Well, then also, listeners, I know the next logical question, and honestly, we are going to be looking to wrap this episode up soon because we want to be respectful of your time too as you're listening to us. I know we've gone longer, but the next question I know is, hey, guys, how do I know what magical items to include? Here's the real secret sauce magic power of a dungeon master. You don't actually have...
I want that one, I want that one, and I want that one. Ooh, I like that one too.
Yep, you don't actually have to make that decision on your own. You can talk to your party sometime, just be like, hey, guys, you had carte blanche on magic items. What would you pick? And that can give you ideas. And you don't have to give them exactly what they ask for. But you can look for things similar. It honestly is fun to just like look online at what people have homebrewed too. Trust me, there is hours of fun to be had in looking at magical items because they'll give you ideas, even if you don't use that exact stuff. I got ideas for like what stuff my villain should have by reading magical items. Then I was like, ooh, I've made them too strong. Gotta nerf some stuff here.
I do have a couple of real quick points on that. So one of the podcasts I like to listen to, Critical Hit, one of the main characters in there was an artificer. So he was kind of their walking, talking magic item builder. And as he leveled up, he could build higher level bracers and armor and weapons and all that, whatever. So if you have a tinkerer in your group, if you have a blacksmith background guy, guild member in your group, if you have an actual artificer in your group, you can utilize that character with specific checks depending on what the item is that you want them to build, different difficulties. They could probably build something like that for your players. They can, eventually enchant that item for them to be strong enough to do whatever they want it to do. Before we leave, not only are we asking the question, how do you find them? Kyle, top 3 magic items. Go.
Okay. So I'm more ready for this question than you thought I would be. Ooh,
only because my recording stuff decided to say no.
Yeah, but my answer does actually change because last time you put me on the spot, and now I'm going to answer more honestly. So I mentioned one earlier. It's one that I never have used in a game, so it might be cheating to say it. But that Ring of Three Wishes, I just someday I want to be DMing a player that has that. Like that's honestly the because I've gotten so I love it when my players surprise me, and that is like the ultimate. You're handing kind of like you're sitting in the driver's seat, but you're saying, "Hey, kiddo, from the back, reach up here and just control the wheel for a minute."
Listeners, as a player in this group, I am taking notes. Okay. This will be used against him at some point in a session.
Someday. So obviously the Ring of Three Wishes, it's just so cool.
Yes,
just the endless possibilities. Then number 2 for me is honestly, and one of my players has this right now, the Sunblade, because I am a massive Star Wars fan, and that is basically the D&D lightsaber. Yeah, it can't cut through almost anything like a lightsaber can, but it's really cool. And just like the ability to be like, hey, I have this hill, and and also that little kid in me is always going to be like, I can swing my sword.
0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
Third one is always like the hardest for me because there's so many cool magic items. You can go like a classic bag of holding because it's a staple. There's just so many things I can go with, but I like stuff that kind of promote creativity. So the Cloak of Invisibility is what I'm going to pick for my third one.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
It really allows for players like that item doesn't break combat, but although it can in the right rogue's hands, but it does promote creativity, and really any class can benefit from the ability of going poof. And so it's just really versatile. Nobody ever... Oops, I bumped my mic. I'm so sorry for you editing that later.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll get it.
I talk with my hands, listener. But
I do too.
Which is really weird for an audio medium. I'm like miming at you guys and you'll never see it. But I love that because of its versatility.
Not that gesture.
That also, I've laughed way too close to the mic there, so also apologize to you for that way. Yeah, that Cloak of Invisibility, it's so versatile, so very powerful, very useful, and promotes that creativity, so I love it.
So I'm going to do this as kind of a twofold answer, as the resident player of the podcast and as a DM. So
I've been a player, it's just been a minute.
So I would say that as a player, top 3 things are Bag of Holding, which was mentioned earlier. I would say we'd mentioned this too, an Amulet of Health. So like basically it's a con booster. So that would give you like a plus 2 to your con, or a plus 1, whatever level you want to have that at. And then anything as honestly, I'm kind of basic because like I said in the last episode, I do enjoy barbarians as my class of choice. So anything that's got a bonus to hit, I will gladly accept it. As a DM, my favorite things to give out players, and I did this in this current campaign that I'm running, is the immovable rod is one of my favorites. And it's only my favorite because there is a bajillion and one ways to use an immovable rod.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen it used as a door lock. I have seen it used as a hitching post for bad guys. I have seen it used. I've heard of people using it as an invisible ladder to use it as a ring, keep climbing up like a rock face. So there's just so many things you can do with that.
For listeners wondering what an immovable rod is, it's exactly what it sounds. It's a rod that cannot be think when Thor drops his hammer on Loki and Loki's like, I'm a helpless child on my back now. That's what happens if you pin someone under an immovable rod. They're just like, I'm here now until you say I'm not.
Basically, let's see. There's that. Random potions are my favorite because a lot of these that I'm telling are more utilitarian and they're very open to their interpretations. And so I think that's why I like to give them out, because I can literally give my players all the rope in the world to do what they wish with them and see what happens.
Yeah, and that's really so much fun. Like anything that you can give your players to promote creativity is that's the coolest thing in the moment.
And then probably...
He wasn't ready for me to answer my question as fast as I did.
I wasn't. I was not ready. Yeah, I'd probably have to, let's see, I said the bag. No, yeah, probably a bag of holding or a handy haversack, depending on what level they're at. Just because, as an adventurer, you're always carrying a bunch of stuff. And yeah, it's a thing.
And it's, kind of like the early Diablo games problem where it's like, I'm trying to gather loot. I ran out of space. Time to go back. Now I can go gather loot. I'm out of space. Time to go. So in order to kind of help your players circumvent that, bag of holding, or of course in the higher level carrying more, handy haversack, which is fun to say. Let's just take a moment to appreciate that naming. The alliteration
Just don't say it like 5 times really
Handy
fast.
haversack.
I think that might end.
I see. Okay. I'm not going.
Got him. Well, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in this week. We say it all the time, but we really, really do appreciate you spending time out of your busy schedule to come and talk with us about D&D from the Dungeon Master's seat. Like Kyle said before, we would love to talk to you. We are on social media. We are on Facebook and Twitter. We have the Dungeon Master Talk podcast page on Facebook. You can use hashtag Dungeon Master Talk to tag us and use at DMT the podcast to tag us in that respect. But if you would like to send us an email, we love emails. We love comments. We love emails. Anything that we can actually do dialect back and forth with you on, please email us at dungeonmastertalk@gmail.com. We just are over the moon excited and appreciative of everything that you guys have done for us in this time. And that being said, if this podcast is helpful to you, please share it with a friend. Please subscribe on your favorite platform of choice if you feel so led to, and leave a 5-star review. Again, thank you so much for everything. So for all of us here at Dungeon Master Talk, I am Shay.
And I am Kyle.
And we will see you next time on Dungeon Master Talk.
Bye, guys.